Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Speaking of top 30 visits for the Saints, they brought in a tight end that I also think is fascinating. Erick All started his career at Michigan, played there for 4 years, and spent this last year at Iowa. Now, what I'm about to tell you, you may laugh, but he was Iowa's leading receiver until he got hurt. 21 catches for 299 yards and 3 touchdowns, which 299 yards and 3 touchdowns at Iowa might as well be 1,000 yards and 30 touchdowns somewhere else. Okay, they're the worst offense in football. We all understand it. But he tore his ACL in mid-October. This after he had a back injury while he was at Michigan. So part of the reason why, if you're the Saints, you may want to bring in a guy like Erick All for a top 30 visit is the medical. We talk about it all the time, right? I mean, the most important part of things like the Combine or Pro Day or a top 30 visit, it's not how you perform. It's the interview and it's the medical. Can you pass the medical? And what do you learn about this person that you're about to draft and invest this capital and money into? He's a big guy, 6'4", 252, so he's your prototypical tight end. And I think for me, when I'm thinking about tight ends forever, I've always thought about how the Saints have looked at tight ends, which are you've wanted your pass-catching tight end, but also the prototypical tight end that was the inline blocker, right? For every Jeremy Shockey, there was a Dan Campbell. For every Jimmy Graham, there was a David Thomas. For every Kobe Fleener, there was a Michael Ho'omanawanui. For every Ben Watson, there was a Josh Hill. For every Adam Troutman, there was a Nick Van Nett. You get my drift? Like, for 15 years, they valued so much the pass catcher, but you also wanted that blocking tight end. It's just the Saints have always done that with Peyton and Carmichael. Well, the most important part of what I just said is Peyton and Carmichael. They ain't here no more. So what does Klint Kubiak want out of a tight end? I think all of us collectively have to reprogram the way we look at that position, because Klint Kubiak may not want 2 tight ends. He may not want the pass catcher and the prototype. He may want the sort of standard prototype tight end that can be an inline blocker that can also catch passes. And when you look around the league, there's really 2 guys that have done that better than anyone, and it's Kittle and Kelsey. But you're starting to see somewhat of maybe the NFL reverting to that NFL prototype tight end. And I'll remind you, when you look at places that Kubiak has been here in the past couple of years, in San Francisco, he had George Kittle. Now, I'm not saying George Kittles grow on trees and they're easy to find, but a guy like Erick All reminds you a lot more of George Kittle than he does of Juwan Johnson. Kyle Rudolph was a tight end he had in Minnesota. Well, Kyle Rudolph looks a lot more like George Kittle than he does Juwan Johnson. And I understand you got Foster Moreau, and Foster is more of a prototype tight end. He can put his hand in the dirt, and he can block. He can also go catch passes. But it's fair to say you didn't get production out of the tight end spot last year. So the Saints, with a new offensive coordinator, may be looking for tight end help. And listen, if Brock Bowers is there at 14, I think that's curtains. You draft Brock Bowers. I don't think Brock Bowers is going to be there at 14, though, and the Saints need tackle help, so that's probably the route they're going to go. So you're thinking later in the draft, where might they be able to get help at the tight end spot? And maybe this is a guy who, but for the injuries, would have projected much higher. Muse, I asked you to go look up some mock drafts, and I saw like a pretty big gap when you look at where some of the projections are for a guy like Erick All. So what did you see? Like, where's the range here?
So, I mean, the main thing that I found that I went through about 5 or 6 of them was he's normally in the 4th or 5th round.
Okay.
I mean, in
day 3.
Yeah, day 3. So 4 out of the 6 that I went through had him in the 4th round. But to speak to what you just said about the big gap, I mean, the highest I saw him projected was 108th overall.
Who was that?
Oh, gosh. That was believe that was Pro Football Network.
Okay.
Had him there. And then the lowest was a mock draft released by the Sporting News today that had him undrafted. So that I found that particularly interesting when you speak to like a large gap.
Yeah. But that doesn't surprise me, especially when you're talking about injuries, because there are always guys who with an injury history will come off of teams' boards. And sometimes we go like, man, how did that guy not get picked? A lot of times this is the reason. I mean, just the first one that popped in my mind is our buddy Derry Beckwith, who's been here. Derry was a projected third-round pick, but he had knee injuries at LSU. When he went to the combine and all that sort of got discovered, he went undrafted. Ended up with the Chargers, bounced around, Saints, and in a few years was out of the league. That happens. So, maybe that's the situation where the Saints are looking UDFA. I mean, I saw Chris Trapasso, our buddy at CBS, he had him mocked in round 5. Matt Miller of ESPN had him mocked in round 6. So this is probably a day 3, maybe a late day 3 guy that you could target if you're looking for tight end help. But one worth keeping an eye on, Erick All, tight end. Spent 4 years at Michigan this last year at Iowa, more of your prototype traditional tight end. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.